Hey all, wanted to do another, sort of philosophical video of me just talking over some footage that I already got from somewhere else. I wanted to start doing like urban exploration and taking like photos and videos of that and then talking over them. Kind of in the same vein of the like Xbox 360 app sessions that I've done. Today this wasn't today, but this is a recording that I got of the graveyard that's next to the library that I study at. The sort of topic that I wanted to talk about was something along the lines of like the starving artist, or what Schopenhauer would maybe call like the will-less subject of knowledge. It's an abstract concept, definitely, but one thing that I've been interested in for the sort of like the longest time is, number one, the idea of, having something that you just love so much that any sacrifice that is like necessary for it, it's like completely justified and, you're happy doing it. I got into that concept kind of like when I got into Stoicism and like that sort of thing. But I also kind of had this interest in, kind of the more big and abstract things in life. Ultimately, the writer that encapsulated that the best was Arthur Schopenhauer, who is, to me, kind of a, philosopher of everything. And one of the most interesting concepts from his writing for me was sort of this idea of like the will-less subject of knowledge and the Platonic ideas. The Platonic ideas to begin with are definitely something that's very influential on my thinking. For those unfamiliar with the concept, it's basically this idea that the abstract concepts that we run into in the world, like, let's say some of the math that would be behind physics, that in some sense that is like objectively real. And in Plato's sort of ideas, or in Plato's conception of the ideas, was that the world is a reflection of these, abstract, ideal forms. So anything that you can see, like a car, a chair, or whatever, has an ideal form of that thing, right? Schopenhauer's idea was very similar, with the key difference that he didn't think that the world was a manifestation of these abstract ideal forms. He thought that the world was basically divided into representation, which is how, our brains sort of categorize the world around us, but that the sort of inner nature of things, that what is it called? The thing in itself was will, right? And he uses as kind of an example, we experience the world as both object and as subject, which basically means that we experience the world through our bodies, which are, in many respects just kind of a object or a material thing. But we do have this inner experience of desires, wantings, cravings, feelings, thinkings, and, so on and so forth. So to Schopenhauer, he thought that this was kind of the basis that we could use to understand the rest of the world, right? There's a whole lot of stuff that goes into that, but to him, the person who can go beyond the cravings and go beyond the, individual striving and can just look at the world objectively as it is the person who can understand the Platonic ideals best, right? That they have this objective, mirror-like perception of how the world works or whatnot. And so that sort of idea was really interesting to me, right? And the part that really interested me the most was this one essay that he did at the beginning of On Aesthetics, an essay and aphorisms, where he says that the experience of beauty, that the experience of, taking pleasure in an abstract idea, even when it has nothing to do with our own aims, is from the experiencing of this abstract, ideal, form of the world, right? But that sort of thinking requires, like, the sacrifice of, individual ego or striving or whatnot. And that's kind of an idea that I've wanted to integrate into my own life a little bit more. It's been a minute since I've experienced this or was going through this, but I remember just kind of getting to this point where, I wanted to be more in tune with, the big picture things in life and the, more aesthetic and more transcendent things like, math or physics or just art and beauty in general. And kind of wanting to get more in touch with that. I've been kind of getting more religious as of late. So one thing that I did was I meditated on it, I prayed on it, and that sort of thing. And sort of I feel like the answer that I got to all of that, the, idea that stuck out to me the most was that, like, just to begin with, if I want to experience that, I do need to bite the bullet and just, thug it out. Like, there's not really an exceptional way of putting it. But, I remember thinking, like, I just got to get my, like, eating in order. I got to, try to not worry as much about myself as much as I do, because I have a really, like, the two sins that I suffer with the most are definitely pride and sloth. Like, I have a very, like, chronic sort of problem of wanting to, be validated or be great or, so on and so forth. And to sort of reach at this image of who I am and who I'm supposed to be. But in many respects, like, I also am just very lazy, where I'm just, like, not motivated to, like, really put in the work. I'm getting better at, both of those, especially the sloth, but that's kind of a journey that I've had to go on. I haven't exactly gotten to a point where I've gotten this, like, freedom from my ego. I've experienced ego death. I no longer want anything in this earthly world. Like, no, that's still the case, but I would kind of say that it's, like, loosened up in a, not completely. I don't think that's really realistic, but in a, significant and meaningful way, right? A lot of this sort of reminds me of the philosophy of, like, Meister Eckhart, for example, who had this idea that in order for us to experience God and to, know God, like, through experience, we have to get to this point where we let go of the mental attachments that we have to, like, property, to, like, even, like, how we conceive God. And we also need to kind of have a more, an ability to let go of, like, earthly, or what he calls, like, fleshly desires. I think the specific term he uses is fleshliness. And that by doing that, we kind of experience God as being, the ground of being. That, and this is where it gets kind of abstract, and I wouldn't know how to describe it, but he uses this term of, has this phrase where he says that the ground of God and the ground of myself are one and the same. I'm not exactly sure what that means. If you're familiar with Christianity, that's a bit of a potentially heretical phrase. But I kind of get what he means. There have been times when I've been, like, meditating, and I'll just kind of be sitting with myself, and I'll, like, I won't really be thinking about too much. I won't really have too much on my mind. I mean, I'll still be thinking. I'm not like a yogi that's mastering this. But it is like, as I sit with my thoughts for so long, it's like I continually go, like, as far back as I can go with my own, like, thoughts or, feelings or, senses or whatever. And I have that, like, experience of, like, touching bedrock. I'm about to close this up because I only have so much time left. But if anyone has any thoughts on this, I'd love to hear it in the comments. Yeah, that's about all for me. See y'all.